So the first portion that I'm going to build is going to be right out here in front of this painted backdrop area. So you can see below there's kind of a grid frame there, and I'm basically going to build something just like that, except it's going to be a little shallower in depth, and it'll also be made out of 1x4s instead of 1x2s. So one consideration that I have to make is the height of the frame that I'm adding. So over here we have our benchwork at 54 inches, and then we have this really thin plywood on top. So that's going to work coming across the doorway here, but once we cross this plane, or this boundary right here, kind of like you see on the lower level, we're going to drop the frame about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, and that'll account for the extra height that is taken up by our cookie cutter style sub-roadbed. So the span that'll be coming across the doorway, like you see on the lower level, will have something similar on the upper level here, and that'll be with our thin plywood. And then again, once we come over here, we'll drop that main frame just a little bit, and then our sub-roadbed will be plopped on top of that, and then everything should fit together pretty nicely. So we're going to go ahead and build that. It'll be really simple. This benchwork actually should go pretty quickly. There's not much to it. I'll put that frame in there, and then once we have that block in, we can kind of build everything off of it. We'll put our, essentially what will be the equivalent of that lift out section right there. That'll go across the upper level, and then we'll continue building off of that frame that'll be up here. We'll build this way, which will be the equivalent of that really narrow portion there. So here's the new portion of benchwork in. I just finished this frame. One thing that you'll notice is that this end kind of has an extension piece on it, and the reason for that is that coming off of, this is kind of leaving Crawford, Nebraska here, there will be kind of a bridge going across the doorway here. It's actually not going to be a lift out like the lower level, but it's still going to be kind of narrow like that, so it's easily accessible. So coming across, you're going to need some place to put that kind of like that angled frame in. So this is where one end will mount, and then the other end will attach right here. And then we will put an angled piece in there to kind of sweep the scenery, kind of blend it into the scene there. I don't think I talked about this, but I did shrink this. Actually, I mentioned that I was going to, but I didn't tell you how much. So the lower level is 24 inches deep, and then the upper level right here at its narrowest point is 18 inches. So in both, the upper level is going to kind of follow the lower level's contours, except it'll be set back a few inches. So you'll have to kind of let me know what you think of that. Ideally, I would have liked to have both decks the same height, or same depth, but I kind of feel like if you're standing here, and this will eventually be an engine facility, if you're standing here and you're like the engine or the locomotive foreman, and you have to move locomotives around in here, I feel like it would be advantageous to have this set in a little bit so you can see everything. Otherwise, I think if I brought it out to the full depth, you'd start to, especially when you get close in here, you'd start to miss a few of the back tracks of the engine facility, which will go back there. So I don't know. I would like to have more scenery up here, so I'll play around with it. We'll see. Maybe if it turns out that it's actually not that big of a deal and really the visibility isn't an issue down here, we can always come in and add an extra 6 inches to that with either taking the frame out or just adding a narrow 6-inch span and kind of like setting it in here and going across. So I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, it's looking good so far. So the next step will be adding our really narrow benchwork like you see down below. That'll come off the end there, and we'll pull that all the way down the wall. Alright, so before I get any further, I figured I'd take a quick break just to explain what I've done so far. So just a few seconds ago we left off over here, and I had just installed this larger portion over what will eventually be the engine facility. And then from there I added this long narrow section, which is actually 2 sections that are spliced together right here, with our 8-foot piece right here, and then a shorter like 45-inch piece right here. And then we have basically, I gotta squeeze over here, basically a copy of what we have down below, except it's all 1x4s instead of 1x2s. So it looks pretty good. One interesting thing that I did up here, unlike the lower level where all the bench work, or like the main framework is level, I actually decided to make this narrow portion upgrade. And you'll also notice down here that I've notched it just a little bit up. So this is a step up about 3/4 of an inch. And the reason for that is, as we were talking about earlier, we'll have our 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch sub-roadbed over here. And between that point, where it meets our really thin plywood that'll go across there and meet up over where we left off over there, between that point and about here is about 50 inches of track, and that's enough at a 1.5% grade to climb about 3/4 of an inch. So that's why we brought this up 3/4 of an inch, because then what I'm going to do is I'll take that plywood, and what I'd like to do is actually just lay that flat across this frame without using any risers. So like you see below, we have this lifted up from the framework. We're not going to do that right here, and that's why I actually, this whole frame, at least this narrow portion, is actually going upgrade. So then when we get down here, while the tracks are going upgrade, so is the sub-roadbed and so is the framework, so it should all be together right here. And then we'll kind of merge into your kind of typical raised sub-roadbed like you see down here, all around that curve back there as well. And that'll kind of, that style will resume right over here, and then we'll head along the rest of the upper level doing the same thing. So I just wanted to explain why I did that, because you probably can't tell in the video, but it is kind of sloped uphill. So anyway, with that done, I think I'm going to go ahead and actually we'll probably work on this section right here now, which is the end of the peninsula. And I have a little bit to explain here. It's going to be kind of interesting because what we cannot do is have bench work like we do below. This is about from the base of this L girder frame to the to the top of this is about 12 inches of sub-roadbed, which we can't do. So what we're going to have to do is kind of build a simple frame like we have right there along all the upper level, and then we'll have to anchor it to this frame, and I'll show you how I do that. I'm going to go ahead and build it, I'll get it in, and then I'll try to explain it so it makes a little more sense. Alright, so here's our new section of benchwork in. This is the end of the peninsula. You know, notice that I actually haven't changed any of the dimensions. So this long, narrow, or not narrow, but the long aisleway, or the shelf out here, is about 17 inches wide, and even though the peninsula is going to kind of bulb out like you see down below, I kept the inner framework at a constant depth. So then what's going to happen in order to account for that, so later when we come in with our main line and it kind of curves out this way, we'll put some risers inset on this frame, and then with using another 1x4 or 1x2, we'll create kind of a 90-degree angle out here, and then our sub-roadbed will rest on top of this piece that kind of swings out. And then to provide a little bit of extra support, I added an angled brace on the top side, and the reason for that is since we're modeling Crawford Hill, we're going to have a lot of rock cuts through here, so this should be hidden behind the scenery. And then down here on the other side, you can see that we have another just simple grid bench work. We haven't extended it out at all, so we'll kind of use the same concept as the other side. The only difference is that I haven't really added any extra support in here because this is only 12 inches deep. So there's not going to be as much force exerted on it, and even the main line doesn't come out as far from the framework. So we should be good over here. Another piece that you can't really see is I added a kind of a cross member on the end here, joining these two independent frames. So now with this piece across the back side, it should keep everything in line and we shouldn't have any problems with support. And really quick, I thought I'd come over here, show you that cross member that I was talking about. So this, you can see these frames are actually at two different heights, again, since our main line's climbing upgrade. And I added this cross piece, which has tied these two frames together. And they're also tied into the rest of the benchwork on the other end. So this is essentially one integrated unit now. So that's about all we're probably going to do in this video. I think I told you that we're going to work on some fascia, but I think I'm going to keep that separate. We've basically completed most of the upper level framework now. The only bit that we have to complete is here in front of the doorway and a little bit of upper level benchwork back in staging, but that won't take too long. I'll probably just get that in. I need to do a little consulting with someone before I finish that. But we got a fair amount done today, so I'm happy with the progress. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll continue working, and we'll have plenty more videos soon. So as always guys, thank you for watching, and be sure to stay tuned and look for more videos soon.